to take down Colo. We're in the blind pick. Let's see what they're going to start this series off. And
Pally versus Pally.
Not a restoration druid. Alrighty.
Not at all. A little bit of a surprise coming in here. We can see that 74% of you think that the reject should be able to take it, but a cheeky pick from Never Lucky may swing your favor.
I think compositionally the rejects have an advantage here. I think Pack Rats is going to be forced into bear form for a lot of this game. Zach is going to be much easier to crowd control than we saw the rejects when they were going up against a resto druid such as Gorecki. I just feel like the offensive playstyle of the rejects is going to play into them compositionally.
Triple Ring of Frost, no, only nailing it on one. They're actually going after Zach at the start of this fight. Typical for Rogue Mage to open on Holy Paladins, and this opener is completely destroyed though by Pack Rats. He got multiple Cyclones, and normally a Paladin like that in that position, Zach, he does not get away with using almost basically nothing to survive. That was a great defense by the team of Never Lucky, and now they are counter-engaging quite heavily towards Jamili.
Yeah, Jamili going to be deflecting Valido a little bit with the Dragon's Breath and the Frost Nova, but Valido still all over him. Zach gets interrupted there. Some damage onto Pack Rats. Jamili looking for a polymorph. Smoke Bomb does get dropped out by Rosti's Combustion as well. The AMZ gets traded out by Valido. Garrote Silence now into Zach, into a Hammer of Justice. Jamili needs to get this polymorph, but it gets interrupted. Nicely done by Valido. Pack Rats should be able to survive. Dragon's Breath comes in. Pack Rats barely hanging on as he dips behind the pillar.
Okay then, Mr. Vinruki. Pack Rat still low health, actually gets stunned out of bear form. Any crowd control on Zach could close this out. Jamili gets denied on it by Valido, but even with just damage, Pack Rats is having a difficult time staying afloat here. Clone on Rubcub, Jamili's taking some heat. He's got that Temporal Shield rolling, but opts to trade. Blessing of Sacrifice from Rubcub as well to stabilize. Now Polymer secured on Zach. It's the reject's turn to attack as Pack Rat dips lower and lower. Zach denies the kill, getting out of crowd control and starting to stabilize. No, they continue the chain. Pack Rat's forced to retreat back behind the pillar, out of line of sight of Jamili. Zach leaving crowd control finally, but as we pointed out, in that balanced druid with Assassination Rogue, you're constantly pinned down in bear form. It's very difficult, and anytime you try and make a move like this, you get stunned out of bear form and gonna get devastated here for a couple of seconds. Rubcub now caught in a polymorph though, stolen by Valido. Nice moves, but no damage to back up the crowd control. Zach preemptively using Sacrifice to deny crowd control and allow Pack Rats maybe an opportunity to attack, but I would say this is heavily in favor of the rejects as the game continues.
Yeah, Zach's just trying to create as much distance as possible to get away from Jamili. Jamili once again landing a triple DR sheep. That was a bit of a misplay there by Jamili, using the Dragon's Breath to stay alive with the Cyclone onto Rubcub. Jamili getting low. This could be his Cauterize. Forced into the ice block. The Maledict was on him, and as a Fire Mage, you basically, it negates your Cauterize cheat death. If you do have a Maledict on you don't get healed up for anything. Meantime, Pack Rat's taking quite a bit of damage. Zach forced to use the Divine Shield to keep him alive.
Zach going one by one through his cooldowns to keep Pack Rats alive throughout these setups. In the meantime, Valido's trying to carry the team with pressure and stolen crowd control. Maybe there's an opportunity here to take out Jamili shortly if they can kill him in the 16-second window. That Rubcub does not have a powerful healing cooldown, but in the meantime, Zach is caught in a blind. Pack Rat's all alone, just quivering behind the corner in bear form. Zach still crowd controlled by Roasties. Roasties reconnects, going one-on-one with Pack Rats, tanking it out, Frenzied Regeneration. Zach still crowd controlled, Valido still crowd controlled, 3-on-1. Pack Rat's just waiting for the crowd control to end so that he can start to attack, but it's just never ending. Maledict's now flying in. Zach dispels that, good response. Anti-magic zone protecting Pack Rats as he tries to attack, but immediately stunned out of bear form. This is going to be even more difficult for Zach, but with Avenging Crusader, he should start to recover. I'm not sure. The damage from the rejects is so high. Polymorph secured. Zach likely to have to use Gladiator's Medallion, but he doesn't want to get blinded later on. Pack Rats is so low. Barkskin hanging on by a thread. Rubcub in position to secure more crowd control here shortly, but Zach is doing miracles work here, keeping Pack Rats going just a bit longer.
Yeah, look at Rubcub though. He still has his Divine Shield. He has the Blessing of Sacrifice. Pack Rat still taking most of the damage. Jamili going to be completely fine with all the cooldowns Rubcub has available. There's the Hammer of Justice on Zach. He has to trinket out. Jamili looking for a polymorph, but he gets stunned by Valido. Pack Rat still trying to counter pressure the best he can with his Incarnation in this situation, but Rubcub's Avenging Wrath should be enough to keep Jamili alive. There's the full polymorph. Jamili dies!
Whoopsie.
Dies without the Blessing of Sacrifice. Rubcub, he just seemed to throw it out, and Pack Rats would have gone down. Big misplay by the rejects. They were so close to closing out that game.
Oh, Colo doesn't even need to play to get revenge.
Sometimes lucky. Sometimes lucky. When you do look at Never Lucky's comp too, Zigo, one of the first things that we heard the casters say was it felt like they were going into this one disadvantaged.
I would have to agree. the main advantage I was giving to them was that they had a Resto Druid, and they didn't bring out that Resto Druid instead. They played that Death Knight, Moonkin, Holy Paladin, and the Moonkin, of course, as you can see right now on your screen, forced into that bear form for the majority of the game. But then here, a nice Solar Beam combo onto Rubcub, and then a lot of Star Surge crits there. And I think Rubcub here is being a little bit greedy, staying in that crowd control. Oh, actually, we saw a nice steal on that poly, forcing out that bubble from Rubcub as well there. And actually, I'm pretty sure Jamili still had his cauterize there at the end. I think I saw it proc, but the Maledict absorbed it all, which is a little bit of a reason, I think, to why Rubcub was being greedy with his bubble there.
They won the game there. Like, they didn't die there, they won the game.
Yeah.
Pack Rat's either being on the Destruction Warlock or the Boomkin, who's a huge vulnerability to Rogue Mage.
If Zach wins this, is he the best Holy Paladin?
Nah, even if he loses, Rubcub is the best.
What is going on?
That's very aggressive. That's very aggressive. That's not the answer I expected.
I got a lot of love for Rubcub. What can I say, man?
Rubcub has been absolutely fantastic. I think one of the things is when you do look at the rejects and you see them having Rubcub, you still believe that they can go very far in the tournament, even if they are slightly disadvantaged. One of the beautiful things about Never Lucky is they have a Holy Paladin who can go toe-to-toe with Rubcub, and then they also have Colo, who can come in on the other healers. So as far as comps are concerned, you do favor Never Lucky, but they're doing some cheeky shenanigans here in the final elimination match of the day.
This is the first time we've seen North America in 2019 Arena World Championship Series. We've seen new players coming up the ranks like Zach on Paladin going toe-to-toe with Rubcub. We've seen retired players like Maldiva coming back and dominating the move, and we've seen Method Orange already knocked out the former BlizzCon champions. We've got the new, we've got the current, we've got the old, we've got the legends, we've got everything here today. This is the final series. You don't want to go anywhere.
That's true. Pack Rat's taking some damage early on. Crowd control initiated by the Rejects. Hammer of Justice on Zach. Pack Rat's trying to counter pressure with his Infernal. Jamili getting low though. Two Maledict's going to be used on him on the Temporal Shield, but Temporal Shield heals him up a little bit here. Interrupt now on Pack Rat's. Jamili just trying to slow down some of that damage early on.
All right. Great spell lock on Rubcub into a fear. Pack Rat's embracing his inner Maldiva here with that crowd control chain, getting a lot of pressure, but now on the back foot, and it's up to Zach. What's he going to do? He's caught in Polymer, but he pre-sacrificed it. Good move on Zach. Breaks out of the crowd control, allows Pack Rat's to potentially get aggressive. Jamili says, all right, that's sacrifice. I'm just going to crowd control both of you and wait a couple seconds for that to fade before continuing to attack. It's good presence of mind by Jamili, just waiting out that cooldown. Now Roasty's leading the charge. Rubcub right on top of Zach. They're playing a lot more aggressive in game two.
I think it's smart. Zach into the Hammer of Justice, polymorph onto Valito. Pack Rat's all by himself right now, but there's no follow-up onto Zach. Pack Rat's still taking a little bit of pressure. Hammer of Justice on Rubcub, though. Zach trying to turn it around with some crowd control of his own. Now Jamili into the Asphyxiate stun. Uses the Temporal Shield. Should be able to bounce his health back up. Now with a full sheep over onto Zach. Pack Rat's, he has to escape. Manages to gate away from that devastating meteor. Nicely done, but Roasty's still all over him.
Yeah, Rubcub moving over as well. Zach gates to Pack Rat's, but still a lot of damage. He's trying to get these Holy Lights out. He doesn't want to get counterspelled or interrupted by Roasty. It's a bit of a scary situation for Zach. He's just using instant cast heals. He doesn't want to risk it. Rubcub getting feared up by Pack Rat's. Good crowd control. Valito, though, going after Jamili instead of Roasty's in this position. Maybe Roasty's would have been the better target. Now switching to him. Roasty's will retreat. Pack Rat's trying to get some casts off, some stuns for some Chaos Bolts off the back of that Shadow Fury. Gets one towards Jamili. Rubcub caught into a stun, and Never Lucky, they're looking good on this composition, I would say, overall.
Yeah, they're doing a good job so far in the game, but I still have to put it in favor of the Rejects. Full polymorph now secured onto Zach. He is playing the Relentless, so keep in mind he doesn't have a trinket. The only CC break he has is the Divine Shield, but so far the Relentless has paid off. It's making it difficult for Jamili to get the re-polymorphs on those CCs. Alito's been able to grip him away, use the Mind Freeze, use the interrupts to stop him, but good consistent pressure coming in from the Rejects, and Rubcub still has that Avenging Wrath, so if his team is in trouble and they can land some CC on Zach, he will be able to get aggressive and help his team take down Pack Rat.
Yeah, every Hammer of Justice is going to be a major response from each team, and that's the Paladins that lead the charge with that spell. As soon as Rubcub gets in line of sight, Zach, he wants to go for one. If maybe Zach moves forward, Zach gets the first Hammer of Justice. Let's see if they can get anything off the tail end of this. They have to chain it together. Pack Rat goes for a fear. Roasty denies the fear. The chain is broken up. Now it's Rubcub's turn. He's going to freedom over potentially to Zach. Zach trying to stay out of line of sight, but Rubkub is etching his way. No, actually a stolen polymorph. Valido has been carrying in this series. You could say that that death in the first game was a mistake, but it was off of the back of amazing play from Valido. Now they follow it up with a fear. This crowd control is devastating. Jamili dips dangerously low, has to trade Ice Block, and Never Lucky do not need luck on their side in this game at all.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job, surprisingly good job offensively. Pack Rats and Zach, they're going to hightail it out of there. They got what they wanted, the Ice Block. It's a very long 4-minute cooldown, so it's unlikely Jamili's going to have one more of those available. And now with the Infernals, the rejects could be in some trouble. Rubkub trying to heal through with the Avenging Wrath should be able to do so, but once that fades, the rejects are going to be super vulnerable.
All right, Jamili trying to make a play here. Gets gripped away by Valido. Great offense, great defense, and Never Lucky might just put the rejects on match point here in this series in the lower bracket and maybe just send them home. Zach on this Holy Paladin is most certainly contending with Rubkub. Jamili's having a difficult time getting crowd control. Valido's making sick plays, and the rejects, their offense early on was great, but they're starting to lose steam.
Yep, Hammer of Justice now on Zach. Kidney shot on Pack Rats. What is Zach going to do? Ring of Frost being channeled out by Jamili. Unfortunately not landing it. Blind going to be secured there on Zach by Rosies as he continues to damage onto Pack Rats. But Jamili's really struggling to get any polymorphs in, any Ring of Frost onto Zach in the situation. Valido keeps just gripping him away, snaring him with the chains of ice, and Zach is just playing Ring Around the Rosy. Keep in mind his positioning. Pay attention to it during these games.
Typically a Paladin is susceptible to mage crowd control, but paired with a Destruction Warlock and an Unholy Death Knight, they have so much disruption that that weakness is shored up quite effectively. This composition that Never Lucky have brought is quite formidable, but in this position, Jamili has finally got crowd control, and simply put, with one crowd control, they pull a massive cooldown from Zach to stay in the fight, and at any moment when that polymorph lands, it could be curtains for Pack Rats. Valido's trying to get aggressive, trying to close this match. Jamili is the most vulnerable target in this position. If they can steal a polymorph with that Dark Simulacron, land a Hammer of Justice, Jamili could fall over. He's got to be careful.
Yeah, it definitely does. Fear now over on a Roasties, but Pack Rats gets interrupted trying to go for the Chaos Bolt once again, but Roasties on that Assassination Rogue just so effective at shutting down his damage with that kidney shot. Jamili and Rubkub, they need to be looking for some crowd control on Zach. Both Holy Paladins at 3% dampening, relatively even on mana, so it's not clear who has the late game advantage. Looks like Pack Rats is going to be able to do some damage. There's the double CC, double Mortal Coil coming in from Pack Rats and a full Fear onto Rubkub. It breaks. It looks like they're actually going after Rubkub and Jamili in this situation. Now CC being turned over onto Never Lucky. Can Pack Rats survive?
He uses that Gliders Medallion, gates across the map to kite, but at this point, will Zach be able to stabilize? There's a lot of damage. Avenging Crusader from Zach is going to allow him to bounce back as both Paladins go toe-to-toe, dealing damage to heal their teams. And even if Never Lucky end up losing this, they are formidable opponents. I'm curious to see how they perform throughout the season as a team, if they're contending with the likes of the Rejects. And I do believe that they knocked down some pretty big teams earlier on in the tournament as well. So let's see what they can really do. It's still not lights out just yet. Pack Rats caught in a 3-on-2, trades cooldowns to survive, sets up crowd control off the back of it, and Jamili's in trouble. It's a race against a temporal shield. Jamili blinks, buys himself a second for it to bounce back, and he goes back to full good kiting on Jamili, but now Never Lucky switched their attention to Rubkub, trying to catch him off guard. Double stun lock combination, looking for that Divine Shield, but Rubkub gets to safety with Jamili's support.
Yeah, nicely done. That was a beautiful Frost Nova, but now, unfortunately for the Rejects, the Infernals get dropped there by Pack Rats. That's going to be empowering his damage, doing massive AoE, and Rubkub doesn't have the Avenging Wrath to really deal with it. Hammer of Justice now on Zach, kidney shot on Pack Rats. Can the Rejects close out this game? There's really not too many defensives left. Zach does have the Blessing of Sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice for Pack Rats to keep him alive. It's going to freeze his HP and redirect all damage to Zach, but in crowd control, he's not going to be able to use it. AMZ gets dropped out by Valido, the anti-magic zone that will prevent a lot of Jamili's damage. In the meantime, Jamili taking quite a bit of burst. Temporal Shield heals him up, but Rubkub getting lower. Might be the Divine Shield coming in from him due to the Hammer of Justice coming in from Zach.
Sacrifice is redirecting damage to Rubkub, and he almost went down just to redirected damage. Pack Rats low, Jamili low. Both teams on the ropes here. Who's going to fall first in game number 2? Ice Block overlap with Blessing and Protection. Jamili cancels it to go for the kill maybe. Zach line of sights it and avoids it. Rubkub's got Avenging Crusader. He's got Divine Shield. He's got the edge in this position, but Pack Rats has Dark Soul up. This Chaos Bolt could be devastating. Looking for Fear. Fake cast the kick. Gets kidney shot instead. Pack Rats trinkets out. Jamili dips. Wow, really low, really quickly. The Rubkub trying to stabilize. That's a cauterized trigger. Jamili's on the ropes. Rubkub is struggling just to deal with the pressure, but manages to get back to at least half. Polymorph on Valido. Jamili in desperation mode.
Yeah, he's trying to survive. Finally, a polymorph on Valido. Rubcup trying to channel out some Holy Lights. The Avenging Crusader not available anymore. This is an opportunity for Never Lucky to get aggressive. Zach almost has his Divine Shield coming back up. Full polymorph secured on Rubcup with a Fear on Rosie's. Jamili all by himself, just sitting back, not able to play aggressive due to that polymorph that Valido was able to steal, basically, with the Dark Simulacrum. And now Jamili pushing in. Meteor onto Packrats, the blind onto Zach, but he uses the Divine Shield. He uses the Avenging Crusader. Doesn't want to fall behind, realizing his team has a massive lead in terms of offense.
Yeah, but mana is almost tapped on both sides. This game is going to end one way or another due to mana and dampening, and it's still a close call as both teams are getting cornered on cooldowns. Rubcup locked in crowd control first as Never Lucky pulled a trigger, but Jamili defends with great polymorphs. Rubcup now has an opportunity, initiates an assault. Packrats isolated. Jamili blinks in. Tons of damage. Vendetta committed, and that commitment earlier from Zach could cost him the match. There's not much left to save him, and Packrats is hanging on by a thread. What on earth? Smoke bomb gets dropped, and Packrats will fall. The rejects were so far behind. He needed one more second to get that sacrifice to stay in it, but was not able to find it. And I think Zach got a little bit ahead of himself in the final moments of that match.
What a game there. The rejects going to be able to tie it up. Zika, what caught your eye there in those final moments?
Yeah, me and Van Ricky both looked at each other, and we saw the hand of sacrifice for Zach. That's what you were looking at, right? Yeah. It was like 3 seconds left on that cooldown. Just 1 or 2 more seconds. We can actually see it right here. As he gets caught up in that Hammer of Justice, is 12 seconds left on that hand of sacrifice. I think if he gets that off, Jamili is going to go down. I mean, there's not really much on the side of the rejects here defensively either. Valido getting fake casted there on that kick, but he's going to get that grip off. Packrats almost surviving with that Death Coil, but Rubcup himself is going to go in and finish the job together with Roasties in that smoke bomb. Very, very close game, though. A lot closer than I would have anticipated. And I gotta say, it's because of Valido. Valido had a really, really good performance. He was consistently slowing up Jamili, making it very, very difficult for him to push in general, to use those blinks. He had to use those blinks to kind of just get away from Valido and the pressure that he was causing. It made it seem a lot closer than what I thought when I just saw the 2 different comps.
Death Knight and the Arms Warrior are relatively tanky against the composition the Rejects is bringing.
All right, Never Lucky finally going to break out a new composition. This is one of their advantages in the series. A lot of tools to work with. We expect the Rejects to stay close to this Rogue Mage. Who is going to find themselves with the upper hand? Who is going to find themselves on match point?
Here comes Captain Colo going head-to-head with Jamili. Let's see who's going to be staying in this tournament, who's going to be going home. We're tied 1-1 in a best-of-5. If you lose 2 more games, you are going out of the tournament, lose opportunity to earn big points to qualify to that spring final later this year. We see Jamili committing a lot of cooldowns aggressively to get crowd control and didn't even get it, so that is going to put the rejects behind early on.
Yeah, definitely not ideal for the rejects. Dark Simulacrum was used. Let's see if he did steal a polymorph. Jamili taking some damage, gets pummeled there. Stun onto Rubcup. Jamili's going to be taking huge cleave pressure right now by this Warrior and this Death Knight. He gets gripped in on that freedom. Rubcup's freedoms are going to be very crucial for Jamili to actually get follow-up crowd control and escape when he needs to, but a nice defensive fear coming in from Zach. Colo gets out of the crowd control. No, he doesn't. Nice Vanish Sap coming in from Roasties, extending the chain, but the damage just isn't there. Zach actually preemptively used the die by the sword to prevent some of this damage. Colo, of course, is playing the Relentless, so every one of these blind goes is going to be very scary for Never Lucky, but if they can survive it, Colo is going to be getting a massive advantage because of that Relentless talent.
Because he is playing Relentless, Zach had to make a premature maneuver, which won't be available the next time Roasties goes for Vendetta, and if he goes for that blind all-in, it's going to be up to Valido and Colo to premeditate that attack and survive. But now that that threat's over, it's Jamili who's on the back foot and up to Rubcup to sustain to that next attack point. Jamili down at half, Rubcup recovering. Avenging Crusader rolling. Now he's going to be doing a ton of damage as well. He wants to mount an assault, but gets Chains of Ice. He's not able to make it to Colo as he ducks around the corner. Rubcup instead, he can't. If he goes for Hammer of Justice, then he can't attack the heal, but he's not even making his way there. So this Avenging Crusader is not getting too much value due to Colo's great positioning. Now Rubcup actually getting stunned. Jamili could be in trouble. Zach leaps away back behind the box to try and get to Jamili and avoid Roasties at the same time. Kidney shot, Hammer of Justice. Great crowd control initiated by the rejects here as Jamili follows the chain and Zach is in trouble. What's he he got to stay alive. Spell Reflect, but that Maledix is soaking all those hots. He doesn't get another Polymorph. Colo gets out of crowd control and is able to start to stabilize, but that Safeguard Trinket was proc. That shield is not going to be available for the next attack, and the Rejects keep finding openings.
Yeah, they are finding these openings. Zach ultimately able to survive. Colo now has the Iron Bark. Fear onto Rubcub. Rubcub using quite a bit of mana here and burning through his cooldowns to keep his team aggressive. Jamili has the Blessing of Protection. He's going to be able to avoid a lot. Colo running away, repositioning, does not want to play on top of this rogue mage paladin. Too susceptible to crowd control. Rosy's getting targeted down a little bit as well. Basically, Zach and Valido, their main objective is do damage and survive. Basically during these crowd control chains. There's a full Hammer of Justice on Colo. Ring of Frost is secured. The Polymorph on Valido, but Valido doing a good job. He grips Jamili away, and now Zach is basically taking no damage from Jamili. Rosy's trying to pressure him down with that full blind. Jamili finally in line of sight, doing quite a bit of damage with the Garrote Silence. Sap over on Colo into Garrote Silence, but that's the end of the chain. Besides the Smoke Bomb, AMZ has to get dropped out by Valido. Colo finally there to get some heal over times onto Zach to keep him alive. Kidney shot, a lot of damage still from the Rejects.
Colo still locked down in crowd control, and Zach dips low. This was the setup that the Rejects were waiting for off the back of this initial assault in the game, but they don't get a kill, and Valido is able to save the day with that anti-magic zone. And now the next time that rolls around, it's going to be up to Colo to save the day. Mana surprisingly even here as the match marches on. Rubcub forced to sacrifice. Jamili still low. Stormbolt on Rubcub. They could switch to him as well with that redirected damage from Ultimate Sacrifice. He could be a target, and the quadruple D strategy, the do damage and don't die, could pay dividends here for Never Lucky as Valido sneakily steals a Polymorph, getting that crowd control on Rubcub, and now trying to initiate damage onto Jamili, but no follow-up. Rubcub leading the charge. Chains of Ice constantly annoying him. He just wants to get to Colo for Hammer of Justice. He's waiting for his team, wants to coordinate together. He doesn't want to overextend by himself, but Jamili's just having a difficult time making his way across the map with Valido on his back, so instead it's going to be Roasties and Rubcub 2-on-2 back here behind the pillar, but with only 2 members and no Jamili, nothing off the back of that attack.
Valido is just destroying Jamili right now. He's trying to push in and get the crowd control. He's getting gripped away. He's getting pet kicked. He's getting mind freezed over and over. He's chains of ice constantly. Look at him. Colo doing a good job. He's just basically forcing Jamili to cross the map, and that is not an easy thing to do when you have an Unholy Death Knight on you. And now Jamili forced into sort of a defensive position. The offense of the Rejects not going to be available, but a full kidney shot now on Zach. He doesn't have a trinket, but he does have the Die by the Sword. He's going to want to use that as soon as possible. Ring of Frost does get secured by Jamili. Good pressure on Zach, but it seems like he still has all the heal over time effects. Kleptomania not going to be available. Zach's HP recovering despite the CC chain, and now Colo can easily keep him stable with the Iron Bark.
Yeah, at this point, it's looking better and better for Never Lucky. Any Restoration Druid team versus a non-Restoration Druid, your goal is to just not die, make the game go on as long as possible, and they've rotated their cooldowns effectively. Here goes the Vendetta blind all in. Zach trinkets, responds. Good trade. Spell Reflect denies Jamili's damage. War Banner breaks up the crowd control. Anti-Magic Zone completely denies the attack. However, Zach used Gladiator's Medallion. He won't have that to get out of the next kidney shot during Vendetta. No, he will have it. His cooldowns are perfectly lined up. There's no opening right now. The Rejects are falling behind. Never Lucky are developing a lot of momentum. Rubcub makes a preemptive move. Stalling damage on Jamili with a few seconds on that Blessing of Protection. Now they switch to Roasties. Multiple members are low. Rubcub needs 5 more seconds for that Avenging Crusader. As soon as that's available, he can bounce back into the fight, but at the cost of probably the rest of his mana, and dampening has only just begun.
Yeah, Jamili's going to be in a little bit of trouble here, and keep in mind, Roasties and Jamili both use their offensive cooldowns. A Combustion from Jamili, as well as a Vendetta from Roasties. So Zach in a very comfortable position, knowing there's not much burst damage available. Colo's going to respond to the Meteor with the Iron Bark, keep Zach available, keep him alive, but Jamili just spams out the Polymorphs, realizing that's the best they're going to get. That's all they're getting is the Iron Bark, so just play defensive, keep him alive, as both Valido and Zach are looking to charge in and keep the pressure rolling on Rubcub and Roasties.
Rubcub holding that Avenging Crusader in his back pocket and really trying to save it for the absolute last moment that he needs it. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Valido evacuates that situation quite rapidly. Rubcub, though, getting switched to by Valido. Valido's just been MVP in this series so far, just aggressively, defensively, very well-rounded Death Knight. Definitely a contender for best Death Knight in North America, if not the game. Rubcub getting pressured, tons of damage. On the retreat to get back to the pillar, Colo vortexes him away. Rubcub wants a Hammer of Justice. There's the double stun. They're switching their attention to the Death Knight and dampening. I think this is a smart move, as Death Strike is a lot more effective as its healing is reduced.
Yep, Jamili still keeping some pressure up on these two. Rubcub trying to get away. Like we kind of talked about, as this game goes on, it's less and less in favor of the rejects. Although their single target damage will be stronger, Rubcub's just going to have such a difficult time healing through this pressure without his major offensives. Roasties does have Vendetta, Jamili does have Combustion, so they might be able to do an all-in strategy with the blind onto Zach once again. Maybe they could try to take down Colo, but I don't think that's the best situation.
Colo running out in the center field to bash Jamili, gives up on that chase and goes after Rubcub. Now they can initiate crowd control. They go for the blind, they go for the Vendetta. Zach and Valito coordinate together to stall this attack, and Rubcub really doesn't have a lot to work with here, and everyone on his team is dying. His mana is slowly whittling away. Dampening's making his healing weaker and weaker, and Never Lucky are in the driver's seat in this match in game 2, looking to move to match point. Rubcub needs a miracle. Can they manage to pull it off is now the question. Valito's the only open target, but even there, it's not too good. It's getting more and more grim for them. They're trying to run away. Valito's is all over them, just completely owning everybody on the team, gripping Jamili back to Zach as he moves forward. As soon as Zach connects, like, this game could just close. Valito actually overextending. That was one opportunity that they can punish. They look to do it with 1 second left. Anti-magic shield saves Valito. Just as I was complimenting him, he almost throws the game away, but now that he's survived, they're going to start decimating the rejects.
Full polymorph on Colo, though. Valito still not out of it, taking some pressure. Jamili getting a little bit low, but the ultimate sacrifice will keep him alive. Rubcub wants to keep him aggressive. Polymorph, another one secured onto Colo. Ironbark is used onto Valito, and now the reject's in so much trouble. Rubcub used a lot to keep his team aggressive. He is almost completely tapped on mana. You can see that Zach's trying to pressure him down, keep up the pressure on this whole Paladin. Maledict does get used. If they can force the Divine Shield, the rejects won't have anything left.
I mean, both sides at this point are running on fumes. The rejects have actually managed to pull off a miracle off the back of Valito's overextension, and they've still got momentum. A great swap to the Death Knight in dampening. Good strategy by the rejects, despite being against the wall and nothing basically left in their court. They're managing to create opportunities. Hammer of Justice, if Jamili can get this Ring of Frost or Polymorph, he gets denied on it for a few more seconds, completely shut down. Colo's no longer able to be crowd controlled. Should he get Polymorph randomly, it would be an error. He's staying at the box. He can line of sight. Jamili's forced away. Rubcub's got no mana left. Jamili's just simply going to fall over at this point. He ice blocks at low health. Roasties feints the swap, but even still just taking damage. Rubcub Divine Shields to avoid crowd control just to get some heals going. Colo actually gets counterspelled. They go for the Miracle Bomb, but Valito had an answer. He's easily going to recover, and at this point now, the rejects have nothing left.
Well, at least they have offensive cooldowns. Roasties has the Vendetta, and Jamili does have the Combustion, but a full polymorph on Rubcub. This is danger time for the rejects. Valito and Zach looking to close out this game. Double Dragon's Breath. If they have any CC for Colo, there's the blind. Can the rejects do it? Can they take someone down? They have all their offenses, but they're just not pulling the trigger. They're keeping them all up. Finally, Combustion gets used, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Sap on Colo. Valito still getting low. The Hammer of Justice. Can Valito stay alive long enough to take down Jamili? And yes, he can. Never Lucky goes up in the series 2-1.
And this is something that we had to ask with them. When were they going to break out Colo? When were they going to use the Druid? And now we do see them very much start to use that tuning knob, change their compositions, and headed into the next one, Zico. We're going to have to look at the replay and try to figure out what do we actually expect to see.
I think they should just keep playing the same thing. It looks like this works. They have a Resto Druid, they have a Death Knight to kind of support that relentless talent choice. And of course, Zach, as long as he keeps not overextending, as long as Valito doesn't overextend too much, we're going to be fine. And then when the game hits this critical mass point, you can already see at the top of your screen, Colo is going to be sitting at about 60% mana. Rubcub not going to have a single cooldown left in his arsenal, and not going to have a single point of mana left in his mana bar as well. Jamili, of course, almost getting something going here with that Combustion. Going to be easily deflected by that big purple zone you can see there. And of course, the Maledict, always there at the end of the game to secure it. Going to take him down and tie up or advance them to 2-1.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing to note as well, Supatis, for anybody just tuning in, maybe didn't watch yesterday, we haven't really talked too much about how important trinket usage has been. We have 2 trinkets that have jumped up to the front, and it's pretty much been the main win condition of most of these teams.
Yeah, Sinister, Gladiator, Maledict, giant shadow bolt of energy that absorbs incoming healing as well. So, but it's dispellable, so you kind of want to split them up. You'll use one, the healer will dispel it, then you commit the other 2 and you go for an all-in kill. Maybe you've got the healer locked out for a long time, so you just do all 3 in a row, but you need to be aware that if dispel is available and you commit all 3, they're going to remove all the healing absorb. So
it looks just like
looks
this.
just like this.
Yeah. It's basically a big red button with some extra spice. It is very, very, very strong, and you'll see a lot of teams close out games with it. But the other trinket that we don't talk about as much because it's not nearly as fun because it's way more defensively focused is going to be Safeguard, and you'll see that bubble pop up quite a bit on your screen as well.
Yeah, you will. It's not something you actually actively use. You just equip it, and when you get low enough, I think it's below 25% health, you do get a nice little absorb for 6 seconds. So this can save you if you're about to die, you're all by yourself, and this trinket procs that can sometimes keep you alive and keep you fighting in the game.
It sells Axis Veiled Eye with a prettier bubble. It's actually quite cool. It's a very pretty bubble, and we see that time and time again. You know, some of those times when we looked at Jamili, not in the last game, but the previous game, it was like all of a sudden, the thing that was really scary is they weren't just taking ice blocks, they weren't just getting carterized, they were also getting that safeguard. So that extra final line of defense that has become such a staple in our current meta, also being taken off the table. But moving forward here into our next draft, we expect Never Lucky to probably go with the same thing at this point, and then they have the 5th game advantage.
I think it's just important to note that Never Lucky has 2 healers, and those healers have played DPS. Zach just went from playing a phenomenal game on Holy Paladin against the best Paladin to switching to Warrior and making it look like he didn't even change classes. Colo earlier on was able to pull off a win with Windwalker instead, so having Never Lucky's versatility to kind of just flip-flop between roles on every member of the team is quite impressive.
Also, Colo's focus on his alts isn't his Windwalker, it's his rogue. So that's not only an alt for Colo, that's probably his 2nd or 3rd alt as well. So very impressive stuff coming out on the side of Never Lucky. Very prepared in the current meta as well. The rejects, do they switch up anything here though, Z?
I'm not sure. They might play some arcane comp, or they might even bring in Seth, but again, as long as Never Lucky plays that Resto Druid kind of tankier comp and they just try to outlast, then they are going to have a win condition as long as the rejects keep playing Rubcup with that Holy Paladin. Rubcup did play some Resto Druid in the previous season, so we know that he has it. I think I would love to see the rejects just play Fire, Asa, RMD and give it a shot, but of course it also depends on what Never Lucky locks in here in the blind.
I'm trying to think the last time that we actually did see Rubcub on the Druid. It has been a little while. I remember back in Legion, like bumping into him in the actual order hall. It's been a while.
I'm curious why Never Lucky decided to go with this composition, and maybe they're afraid of the Arcane Mage or something. It seemed like the TSG was just so solid. What the rejects was running.
This is, we've seen weird picks from them throughout it. I mean, it's very interesting when you listen to Zico, right? Zico at this point is saying, yeah, Never Lucky just should be able to close this one out, at least take it in game 5. But there are other points when he says, oh, the rejects, based off of the comps that we just see, they should be able to take the entire series. A lot of that going around the picks that we see from Never Lucky.
Well, I feel like Never Lucky, they're trying to abuse the map. So maybe if they went the TSG, they're not as confident in that super wide open map. And instead, what they're going to do is abuse the fact that Valido has basically been bullying Jamili, stopping him from getting all these polymorphs, and using these big pillars as a way to avoid crowd control on Zach and ultimately win the game in the long run.
Do you think that's what's happening here, Z?
I think they're overthinking it. The rejects have one comp. They can bring in Seth Curry, which is, in my mind, a little bit worse version of Asa Rogue Fire Mage. And that's about it. We saw already them attempt to play the Arcane Mage, and we saw they played long games, and then in dampening, they ended up losing those games. I don't think that they're going to be bringing that out again, and we are going to see the Holy Paladin Fire Assassination. However, it wasn't a terrible matchup when we saw it on Ashermains. It was a lot closer than what we thought, but why you just beat this comp that you're facing, why would you pick the comp that you lost to it with?
Do you think that this is a team on the side of Never Lucky, obviously a newer team here that we're really getting our first eyes on today, and then potentially we see them again tomorrow? Do you think that this is a team that would be prone to overthinking things?
I think that they're just giving too much respect to the rejects. I would say, do you want to play Arcane Mage? Go ahead. We're going to be playing this melee cleave composition until we are forced off of it. Let's see what you guys have in store, instead of thinking about those demons in their heads. Oh, they might play this or they might play that. Instead of thinking about all the different things that Jamil actually does play, because he is a phenomenal multiclasser, just force him to play it.
And I feel like even though Jamili has been a phenomenal multiclasser in the past, right now we don't expect to see that side of Jamili. We really expect to see the Fire Mage side of Jamili. Arcane, like you said, not something that's going to be particularly scary. And when you look at Seth Curry, how scary is that to have Seth Curry in this particular matchup on the bench? Obviously, the best at what he does, one of the best at what he does. Don't want to fall into that. One of the best at what he does.
I don't think he's that scary on the Windwalker Monk. I think the Rejects Rogue Mage is just at another level that they don't really even need him in this case, but maybe later on if the meta shifts, obviously changes could be made, so you would want to have him as like a pocket pick, but I think they need more than just the Windwalker Mage if they want to utilize him. It seems to me that Windwalkers are most usable in the Windwalker Death Knight composition, especially as a counter pick, so they could utilize him in that sense later on into the season. Maybe the Windwalker Mage gets more potent moving forward when Druids are less proficient potentially. I'm not sure, but maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, so I'm not sure. It seems difficult for them to utilize Seth Curry. When we saw him earlier in the day, it didn't really work out, and their Rogue Mage just looks on point, so I'm not sure how they decide to use him. Never Lucky going on this composition. It's open field. Destruction Warlock might be able to get some Chaos Bolts sneaked off there, so that might be what they're thinking. The open field not running a melee cleave makes sense, but this composition is disadvantaged, I would say, to the Rejects. But if they play very well, they could take a win. All it takes is one Chaos Bolt. They're on match point, so there's that to consider.
That's my motto. Then, how do you actually feel about Monks, though? You hear Sid kind of say, maybe right now with the current state of play, not the strongest choice, especially in this matchup. Do you feel like the Monk here could be something to get some work done? We know that this is an elimination match. Never Lucky could close it out here.
I don't think Windwalker Fire Mage Holy Paladin is better than the Assassination Rogue, so Seth Curry on this roster is one of those members where I don't know where he necessarily fits. I don't know when you would want to bring him in.
And now the gates are about to open. Never Lucky trying to book their ticket to Championship Sunday. We'll have to see what the Rejects have to say about that.
North America has been explosive throughout this, but it could just be a Holy Paladin showdown to end the day as Never Lucky put the Rejects on match point and look to send them home. Kolo's revenge from the bench. We can see everyone in crowd control right now on the side of Never Lucky as the Rejects get perfect initiation. Now they need damage to follow it up, and it doesn't seem to be like they have it just yet. Packrats gets to safety. There's the damage following through. Packrats holds on. Zach gets out of crowd control, but multiple Maledicts moving forward to soak up all that healing. Regardless, Zach recovers and basically trades nothing for it, just completely unshaken. This is a great start for Never Lucky.
Yeah, Never Lucky was able to hold on despite all of that crowd control, and basically the Rejects committing a lot there in terms of their offensive cooldowns. They used both of their Maledict trinkets, so won't have that available later on. Now just line of sighting during these Infernals, trying to avoid a little bit of damage, but Packrats, he's going to be able to put out a little pressure with a Shadow Fury. Jamili blinks away. There's a Hammer of Justice on Zach, but Jamili gets ripped away once again, finally getting there for the Polymorph. Now Packrats could be in a little bit of trouble. Zach once again playing the relentless trinket choice, so although he'll never be able to fully break crowd control outside of his Divine Shield, all crowd control will be reduced on him. I think it's a smart choice against a Fire Mage.
Currently, Packrats alone as Zach is sitting through a lot of crowd control, still managing to bounce back. Avenging Crusader, Hammer Justice, double stun. Good lockdown by Never Lucky as they go towards Jamili. He is trying to kite. Rubcub right next to him, catching a couple Holy Lights and bouncing back into the fight. Velito looking to carry for his team. He's the playmaker with that Dark Simulacron. He's the one that's open to do a ton of damage, and he needs to lead the charge while Packrats does his best to just be a damage sponge and soak it without going down. They are in match point. They've got a massive lead, but at the moment, Jamili secured so much crowd control in this fight. Packrats is dipping low. How are they going to handle it? They don't break up the chain. Packrats dips even lower, managing to stay in it just for that last poly. We're going to do a Dragon's Breath now. Chaos Bolt attempt. Rubcub got locked down in a lot of crowd control throughout that moment as well, but the Rejects are doing a great job with this hit and run. When they have crowd control for Zach, they're pushing forward. When it's just about to run out, they start to pull away, and they're using the map quite effectively, but finally Never Lucky are getting aggressive.
Yep, Rubcub taking a little bit of damage right now, but Jamili wanting to push in once again with the full blind onto Zach. Rubcub there to follow it up with the Hammer of Justice. Jamili looking like he wants to get some sort of additional crowd control, but Zach, he actually used his every man for himself racial to get out of that Hammer of Justice, break up the chain. Then there's always that threat of the Hand of Justice, but Jamili manages to sneak in the sheep. Packrats still getting low, and this could be the Divine Shield Blessing of Sacrifice, but not enough damage incoming from the Rejects. Packrats doing a good job just fierce spamming up both Roasties and Jamili. Jamili.
Yeah, Packrat's getting a Chaos Bolt. Jamili ducking for cover around the corner. Now Packrat switching his attention. They're actually attacking Rubcub quite a lot, and I think he is likely to be the target that goes down on this in this fight, surprisingly. Zach repositioning away from Rubcub and Jamili, and that's great maneuver. You always want to go out in the open with a Destruction Warlock on your team, because then Packrat can rain Chaos Bolts onto whoever he wants. Rubcub, though, is keeping up the chase. Valito's pressuring him away. Now Rubcub caught in a stun, forced to trade out a removal of that stun. Packrat's Chaos Bolt gets interrupted, overlapped a bit by Jamili and Roasties. Their communication a little bit lacking. That could allow Packrat's an opportunity. He gates towards Zach, trying to break that Polymorph, but it may not be enough as the Maledicts soak up any sorts of healing for him. They continue the chain, and Packrat's is holding on by a thread. How much longer can he keep it up? Zach connects the ultimate sacrifice just at the last second, and now it's time to strike. Jamili dips low. Rubcub's locked down. This Temporal Shield is well placed, but it's going to get soaked up by the Maledicts. Absorb. He does still manage to bounce back quite high. Rubcub still in crowd control. Jamili grip back into the fight, but still healthy, and the rejects are slowly but surely sustaining a lead.
Yeah, Jamili trying to push in, look for crowd control. Zach still doing a good job line of sighting him. They need the damage set up on Packrat. Packrat's actually trinketed out. He's trying to avoid some of this crowd control. Nice interrupt coming in from Valito, freeing up Zach to keep Packrat's alive. He has to actually end up using the Unending Resolve, so that's a big vulnerability now for Never Lucky, as well as the AMZ. And Jamili, he didn't commit his Combust. This is super scary for Never Lucky.
I mean, they're just running out of cooldowns and out of options. Divine Shield now out of the way. Valito trying to be the playmaker with a stolen Polymorph toss towards Rubcub, but Jamili deflects with a Dragon's Breath. There's no openings right now. Rubcub's team has a gigantic lead. It would be a throwaway for them to lose this, but they did throw away game number 1, so you can't count them out just yet. One Chaos Bolt could close this series. It is the rejects on match point. They have to win this and another match, and they're likely to go to a small map with that Restoration Druid TSG for game 5, so there's still a lot of work ahead of them. They can't afford to throw it. Packrat Smoke Bomb gets dropped. They go all in for the kill as Packrat tries to escape that cloud of smoke. Zach connects a Blessing of Protection. Jamili strips that off right away and isolates him. Dragon's Breath Polymorph gets deflected by Valito, doing everything he can to keep his team on his back, but he's caught in Frost Nova, unable to break up the chains, and Never Lucky are just not able to get any more offense going at this moment in time. Packrat's moving towards his Demonic Gateway. He's going to need that as a getaway because he's basically got nothing left else to his name. Rubcub's in fear. Packrat goes for Chaos Bolt, gets Kidney Shot. This could be game-winning if Jamili can get across the map to Zach.
Yeah, and we now are in dampening. Rubcub charging in, looking to extend the CC chain. Zach, every man for himself, out of the Hammer of Justice. Jamili still there, looking for a Dragon's Breath Polymorph, actually just going for damage. Got interrupted there, now looking for a Polymorph. Gets interrupted once again by Valito. Good teamwork by Packrat and Valito. Zach really doesn't have too much left. Does the ultimate sacrifice, keeping Packrat alive. Never Lucky needs some sort of counter pressure, but Rubcub still Divine Shield, has the ultimate sacrifice. Jamili with no Ice Block is really the vulnerability, but Rubcub is going to be able to save him.
At this point, Dark Soul is activated. This next Chaos Bolt, if Packrat can get it off. There's one Chaos Bolt. It's a gigantic one potentially towards Jamili. 2 in a row. Tons of ultimate sacrifice. Rubcub respected that, redirected the damage to himself as he was able to avoid it with Avenging Crusader. Smart move, and now Packrat is on the ropes. He doesn't have much to work with here as both teams run on the final line. Can the rejects manage to stay in the tournament? They face elimination. They've got a massive lead. They can't afford to throw it away. Packrat's getting kited, not able to get in line of sight of Jamili at this point in time. What is Zach going to do? He really has no options. Valito is going to have to carry at the end of this match. He's the one with the anti-magic zone. He can save Packrat, but he gets crowd controlled by Jamili. Meteor is about to come crashing in. Tons of damage. Valito breaks out of crowd control to save the day. Potentially might not even be necessary. They're holding on to it, but I'm not sure how much longer they can afford to hold on to it. This could end up being an error as Zach has to do so much work with not much left, but he's managing to make it work. He's trying to fake cast a blink counterspell. He's very afraid to cast and open up his spell school. He's just using instant cast heals with the Light of the Martyr. Goes for a Holy Light. Blink. Counterspell doesn't land. Packrat's still at half. Zach just can't recover. Rubcub's Divine Shield surprisingly forced. Never Lucky have one opportunity left.
Yeah, he has to pre-heal a lot of this damage. He doesn't have any emergency cooldowns like the Ultimate Sacrifice or the Blessing of Protection. Jamili getting really low. Valito stole the Divine Shield, able to just push in aggressively here. I don't know if that was a lucky steal or he knew that was going to happen, but nicely done by Valito. Hammer of Justice now on Zach. Kidney shot on Packrats. He uses the unending resolve as well as the anti-magic zone. Never Lucky trading out cooldowns preemptively and dampening. This is a scary moment. Jamili getting low as well. Fierce Spam coming in from Packrats. Rub Cup caught into the crowd control. Dragon's Breath. Jamili trying to slow down the enemy team to stay alive. Free Rub Cup from some crowd control, but Jamili just seems to be caught in the middle of the map, and if Packrats can get out any damage, this is going to be devastating.
Infernals are dropped. Rub Cup's into Polymer. Valido hard carrying the team despite being disadvantaged. They've got 6 more seconds to kill Jamili. Can they do it? 4 more seconds to kill Jamili. 2 more seconds. They're not going to do it. Roasties denies. Packrats gets stun locked. Zach gets into the smoke bomb right away to save the day. Jamili is still low. Rub Cup, do not throw this game away. You're going to be going home. You're locked in crowd. He pre-sacrifices the fear. Nice play by Rub Cup. That now will allow them potentially to take the match as Zach is still locked out of crowd control. He has his sacrifice available though right at the end of the chain. If he needs it, he's going to save the day. Both the Paladins battling it out to the end of their ropes. 1 Chaos Bolt connects straight to Jamili. He needs 10 more seconds on Ice Block. Is he going to get it? It looks like he may be able to make it to that point, and suddenly the Rejects have the lead.
Hammer of Justice on Rub Cup. They're still trying to play aggressive, but Jamili is in a safe spot. Rub Cup getting a little bit low. No Divine Shield. If Packrats can get some damage off and Valido get there as well, he might be vulnerable, but no, Valido just wants to slow down Jamili, continue this pressure, but Jamili has that Ice Block back up. Is he going to be able to get it off? He gets low. Ice Block activated immediately. Zach, in the meantime, using his Divine Shield to keep Packrats going. Both teams completely empty on cooldowns.
It's a Destruction Warlock derby here today as Maldiva asserts dominance in the lower bracket. Packrats looking to face him tomorrow if they can pull off this victory. Despite composition disadvantages, they are doing God's work at the moment. Valido carrying the team both aggressively and defensively. Zach avoiding as much crowd control, and somehow Packrats getting counter pressure despite this assassination rogue. Pesky rogue in his face. Chaos Bolts are flying fear over onto Roasties. Packrats trying to set up for some burst to close this game out. Rub Cup moves forward. This could be the final push for either team as they basically have nothing left on either side. Rub Cup gets crowd controlled first. He breaks out to try and re-engage, but Zach is just kiting him. He's avoiding it. Rub Cup is stranded. Jamili blinks, secures the polymer. Packrats in trouble. It could just be at Valido though, trying to save the day. Anti-magic zone, it needs to be enough, but will it be is now the question as the Rejects look to stay alive in the lower bracket. Perfect crowd control. The defense is cracked and Packrats is likely to fall, and will the Rejects keep it together, and we're going to a game 5.
The battle of the last 2 Paladins in this tournament is going to go all the way to a game 5. The question is, I think we really do see a change come in on the side of Never Lucky potentially here. All of those opportunities seem to be on Valido just playing absolutely out of his mind.
Yeah, Valido had such a strong game, shutting down setup after setup after setup, stealing bubble, stealing all kinds of polys, just really insane play from Valido in this match, but it just wasn't enough. It was very back and forth, honestly, but ultimately the Rejects, they do land that setup that they need in the end. Finally, Rub Cup pushes in on one side of that pillar. Jamili is going to push in on the other side, land that Blink polymorph, and then they're going to be able to follow that up with the Hammer of Justice, a short polymorph, and then that Dragon's Breath as well in the end to secure it. We also had Roasties ready with that sap there towards the end as well, and that's what happens. Eventually, you wither them down on those cooldowns, and then you can take that Warlock down. So far, I'm not convinced by what we're seeing here, because so far Zach played in game number 1, and we all kind of agreed that it was a little bit of a blunder. He should have lost that game. Then in the game number 2, they lost as well, and in this game as well. So far, I'm not sold on the Holy Paladin pick at all from Zach. I want to see Colo returning to the fray. I want to see a small map like Hook Point, like Black Rook Hold, and I want to see that melee cleave one more time.
Inconsequential to the game. I'm not sure.
Especially when you're talking about these small windows of opportunity, right? That doesn't play into that win condition. But when we look at the Rejects and Never Lucky, you have to keep in mind, this is the last game of the day. Only one of them makes it to Sunday.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the last game of the day. Who's going to take it? The Rejects. If you're a Jamili fan, you're going to need to be cheering for him in chat. If you're a Colo fan, you're going to be cheering for him in chat. This is going to be it. One of these teams will be sent home momentarily.
Yeah, Colo in a sap right now. It looks like they might want to open up on him. There it is, Mark for Death, kidney shot on Colo. They're looking to get aggressive, but they don't use any offensive cooldowns. Maybe they just want to bait out the War Banner, bait out Barkskin. I guess they did get the Barkskin, so now there's an opportunity for them to take down Colo. With no Barkskin, playing Relentless, Vendetta, and Combustion available, I feel like the Rejects, if they do it right, they can definitely pull off an all-in.
Yeah, most certainly. Colo trading Barkskin, basically giving it away for free there, and Rossi's still hunting him down. Jamili, though, is getting forced away, not able to stay on top of Colo. Rubcup just struggling to heal Jamili while Roasties goes on a solo mission. I don't think this is going to work. Colo pre-Iron Bark's expecting an attack, and now they have to wait for that, but as soon as it's gone, he could be in trouble. Valito's Polymorph far away. Rubcup knows it. They're going to try and get a kidney shot into Hammer of Justice on Colo momentarily. Kidney shot, they need damage though, and Zach saves the day on that Arms Warrior, crowd controlling Roasties, denying any sort of follow-up, and Colo is just easily going to walk away from this attack, but Roasties is relentless. He's just going to keep staying on top of him.
Yeah, if he can land another kidney shot, it could be scary. There's going to be one Gladiator's Maledict on Colo, reducing some of that incoming healing, preventing him from fully topping himself. Using the Bark Skin once again, has the Iron Bark available if he needs it, but Jamili's, he's just being left alone right now. Getting destroyed by Zach and Valito, looking for the Ring of Frost, gets double interrupted. This could be the Cauterize from Jamili, potentially Ice Block as he looks to make his way over to Colo. Temporal Shield, Kleptomania going to be used. Big burst damage over on a Colo. Zach trying to still counter pressure Jamili as best he can. I like Colo's positioning. I mean, with Rossi's just sitting on him, basically what he needs to do is make sure he's just out of line of sight of Jamili, forcing Jamili to use blinks to get in his line of sight, and that allows Valito and Zach massive uptime.
Colo practicing his bear form ollies on the skateboard ramp here to the side, just deflecting all attacks. And I mean, the Rejects don't have many options, so I don't blame them for trying to do this. They get double Ring of Frost, great crowd control. They go all in. Can they do it? Anti-Magic Zone is a little bit late, but late is better than never. And Colo just staying next to the wall, trying to line of sight Jamili as much as he can, and he will ultimately recover. The longer Colo survives, the worse Rubcub's mana is going to get, and dampening will increasingly get higher and higher. Maledict from Colo towards Jamili, trying to get some pressure. Temporal Shield traded for that. Jamili polymorphing up the DPS members and trying to bait Colo to dispel one of them, and then maybe Rossi's can kidney shot him out of bear form, but it's becoming very predictable, their attacks towards Colo.
I mean, yeah, Rossi's just sitting on him. He's not really doing anything else. There's no counter pressure on Zach and Valito. Colo really doesn't have to worry about anything. He's just carefree bear in this game, chilling out in his efflorescence, getting that additional healing. Rubcub on top now, all three members. It's a good opportunity for Valito and Zach to get some damage rolling. Colo still has the Bark Skin, has the Iron Bark, has the Renewal. He's playing Renewal, so realizing he could be a target in this matchup, that does help him survive. Gets Hammer of Justice out of form, but Rossi's in the fear, wasn't able to really commit or connect too much damage during that stun. It was kind of wasted.
All right, Colo still just the target. Tunnel down, start to finish. Trades Barkskin for a DR kidney shot. Iron Bark as well, and now actually doesn't have many options for Vendetta. Rossi's is just going to press Vendetta. The Rejects are just going to maximize their damage and say, all right, Colo, here's everything we've got. If you've got enough to take it, then fine, advance on. But if you don't, we are going to be walking away with this victory. And Jamili is just focusing on crowd controlling both Zach and Valito. It's 3-on-1. Zach leaps over to support. What's he got? Colo doesn't have much to work with here. Caught in double stun, but that Gladiator Safeguard shield buying him time. Swift Mend catches him. He's still in a bit of trouble for the next 20 seconds. If Rossi's can stay on target, that Chains of Ice making it difficult. Ursul's Vortex in the Shadow Step. Stormbolt for the follow-up. Good positioning by Colo, dealing with this train basically as well as he can. Trying to buy time for that Barks. Can he pre-Iron Barks before the incoming stun? And I don't think it's going to work for the Rejects. They have to start mixing it up a bit. Maybe they're just desperate. I'm not entirely sure. Rubcub actually just got full mana. Maybe they can do it if they keep mana and go into dampening. There's potential.
Yeah, definitely potential. Jamili just really focusing on crowd control this game. Just looking for the polymorphs, looking for the Frost Novas on Valito. He's trying to limit the damage, and eventually maybe Rossi's on the Assassination Rogue. His damage will really sink into Colo, and if Jamili comes in with the Meteor, with the Kleptomania, they might be able to eventually take him down. But I think if Colo plays it smart, he plays it patient, doesn't overreact to situations, he should be able to survive this type of strategy.
All right, we're moments away from dampening, which reduces the healing of each team, and finally the Rejects start mixing it up, going after Zach with a smoke bomb, and they managed to pull a Gladiator's Medallion. telling you, she's an opportunity to kill him later, most certainly. Dampening now has just started. Rubcub's got good mana. If there was a game for the rejects to pull this off, it would be this. Rubcub, the last Paladin, well, other than Zach, the last only Paladin team, the last only non-Resto Druid team in both regions, trying to keep that dream alive and maybe go all the way. See if he can do it. Colo gets locked out. An opportunity to strike here. Crowd control on Valido as well, baiting Colo to come out of bear form and dispel. He gets the Hammer of Justice off to dispel. He can switch to Polymorph. They should have gone for Vendetta. I'm very surprised that they didn't. Instead, actually switching to Colo, and maybe that's the best way to find victory, to switch back and forth between the Druid and the Warrior. Make sure Rubcub gets away, drinks, regenerates mana for the late game, and then just find a surprise kill on one of these targets. Otherwise, it's not looking too good for the rejects.
Yeah, Colo channeling Tranquility behind the pillar, gets blinded on it. They're continuing the pressure out onto Zach right now. Vendetta does get used. They're looking for an all-in. There's the full sap onto Colo. Zach could be getting lower and lower. Dive at the sword does get traded out. Is there any follow-up? Yes, there is. Nicely done by Jamili. Gets the Polymorph, secures that. Full Hammer of Justice on Colo. Zach is still low. He has the Rallying Cry. He ends up using it to keep himself alive. Now Colo out of the crowd control. Ironbark available. Zach's going to be completely fine, and they managed to survive the blind Vendetta all in.
I do believe Zach is Dark Iron Dwarf or Dwarf. He used the racial there, the Fire Blood racial or the Stone Form, to remove all of that damage over time effect from the Assassination Rogue. And it's a smart move on the Warrior on this team to play Dwarven in any case, whether it be Dark Iron or not, as it is a bit of a soft counter to the Assassination Rogue. So it's a smart move. They definitely planned this strategy out with double Dwarf on both Valido and Zach. Colo getting swapped to again as the rejects start mixing it up and dampening, and this is what they need to do, is keep Colo on his toes. Who are they going to go after and try and find a surprise kill? Rubcub's done a great job to beef up his team and his mana throughout this fight. It's definitely one of their best games so far, despite the first 4 minutes being just train the Colo game. In dampening, they're making a lot of great maneuvers.
Yeah, Jamili looking for a Ring of Frost to free himself up just a little bit. Valido opting not to enter that, doesn't want to crowd control himself freely. Still getting the damage off, finally running in with the AMS. Potentially a target later on. We saw the rejects in the last time we saw this matchup from the rejects and Never Lucky. The rejects ended up switching over to Valido later on in dampening and trying to take him down. Zach was just a little bit too tanky. A lot of the tankiness from the Death Knight comes from his self-healing. So as dampening gets higher, you limit the self-healing, and then maybe the Death Knight eventually becomes a better target. We might see that again from the rejects.
All right, they're just gunning down Zach once again. Colo caught in crowd control. Jamili, is he going to sneak it in there? No, he's not able to get the Polymorph, and now Zach is going to start to sustain himself with Ironbark. Mana still even. Rubcub is doing some work on this Paladin to stay toe-to-toe in mana with Colo on that Druid. Druid just dominating both regions in the tournament this weekend, but Rubcub's making the final stand for that Paladin representation. See if he can pull it off here. Never Lucky's defense has just never been cracked so far. They make a swap to Colo. Roasties catches him, but Jamili just can't get there. He's too far away, and he's getting just pummeled away by Valido and Zach. So much damage. Rubcub with Avenging Crusaders trying to lead the charge, and they've made it into dampening with mana and potentially could take Colo out if they can stay on top of it. But in the meantime, Jamili forced into Ice Block. Rubcub falling more and more behind, and Colo is looking like he's going to be getting that sweet, sweet revenge.
Potentially. Jamili, when he's left alone, I really don't like this from the rejects. When Rubcub and Roasties push in, Jamili's just left to fend for himself. There's really not too much he can do. Zach and Valido have a lot of tools to interrupt with him, mess with him, keep him snared. Jamili's having to use his blinks defensively, playing a lot more patient than we saw in Dalaran Sewers, just ultimately trying to survive and slow down damage. And I think that's why Rubcub has so much mana at this point in the game, just because of how defensive Jamili is playing, just pulling away. Every single Dragon's Breath is just to survive all these Polymorphs out of the Dragon's Breath, Temporal Shield, just to run away and not really pushing in on Colo.
Dark Simulacron Poly. Rubcub locked out of the game. Jamili with no defense. Roasties peeling them away. They can't connect. Good job by Roasties, but they could even switch to him. He needs to be aware of that. Both targets are low, and dampening is getting deep. How's Rubcub going to recover? He's got ultimate sacrifice. He can't afford to throw. It's match point. Trades and will recover. Colo pushing forward. Smoke bomb available. No trinket on Zach. This is the only opportunity I see for the rejects with the combustion of Jamili. They need to crowd control Valido to deny that and go for a smoke bomb play. If they don't, they're just slowly but surely going to get whittled away by Team Never Lucky. Roasty's attacking Colo, maybe trying to bait him and then go for a swap. I'm not entirely sure. I would love to see it. They polymorph Zach. Makes it look like they're not going after Zach. They are just going to gun down Colo, but Jamili can't get there. Rubcub stuns him again on the follow-up. Maybe Roasties can solo him. Maybe Roasties puts the team in his back pocket. We're going to have to find out here shortly. Maledicts, they go for it. They get double bark skin, anti-magic zone, double cooldown, triple cooldown overlap, and maybe the rejects can do it.
Yeah, Jamili didn't commit his combust, and they have Vendetta coming up in 35. If they play patiently, get Colo in a kidney shot. No, they're going for it. Kidney shot on Colo. Jamili trying to get there. He's caught into the asphyxiate stun. Zach trying to keep him alive, trying to peel off Roasties and Rubcup just a little bit longer, but Colo, he overused. They don't have anything left. He has the renewal, but that's about it. He needs to create some distance, get away, allow Valido to peel off Jamili and Roasties if they have distance, but that's really the only thing that will keep him alive. Now Roasties getting swapped to, but Jamili, he has that combust. Vendetta's also available and ready to go. If Colo gets caught in bear void, if he gets caught at all with those cooldowns, he will go down.
That's it. It's going to be it. Vendetta popped. It's a race to the finish, and Colo could easily fall as the rejects look to deny his advance. They take him down, but they're going to play it out in the 2v3. Jamili and Roasties are both low on health. Zach is blade storming away. Rubcup trades Busting Protection. They polymorph up Zach. They're going to take a deep breath and say, oh my goodness, how did we manage to beat the Resto Druids? They stay alive in the tournament. They've bought enough time with the crowd control. Zach's still just trying to play it out. I don't think they can really believe it. They've managed to lock down Rubcup. Roasties maybe falls. It would be an absolute stellar play here for a Warrior and a Death Knight to 2v3 a Mage Warrior, a Rogue Paladin. I don't think it's going to happen. Zach with nothing left, just chopping away, trying to take Roasties out, but now with Ultimate Sacrifice, Divine Shield is almost guaranteed. The rejects stay in it. The last Paladin, he is going to stay alive. Rubcup.
Man, when you do look at this series, all of the sudden you have to ask some questions about the way that those comp selections were made by Never Lucky. This didn't come down to luck. The rejects going to be able to reject them from the tournament.
Yeah, and it just comes down to how you play that last portion of the game, regardless of comps. When dampening is at 30-40%, one individual mistake, and all of a sudden, one team just gets a big, massive lead, and that's pretty much what happened right here. Colo had to use his bark skin and his iron bark on that previous setup. In addition to that, he also has a really terrible positioning right here, and in addition to that, he's also getting caught outside of form right there, and that's going to be all that you need to do. You're going to get that big setup with that kidney hammer of justice, with the maledict trinkets as well coming in, and you're going to be able to take him down right there. And you got to hand it over to rejects, and especially Rubcup.
Yep.
I don't think another paladin, well, maybe Zach, but I don't think many other paladins can get a game going to 40+% dampening, especially in a matchup like that.
Every game to 40% dampening.
Right, yeah.
Not just a game, every game.
Very difficult to do on the Paladin right now, and you can see cashing out on the bottom of your screen.